Imagine waking up one morning, you grab your coffee, you head into work. You take your ID badge, you tap it on the sensor, but you're locked out. You're looking at your ID badge, but there's nothing wrong with your ID. Your job, it's gone. With no warning, no email, no handshake or one last meeting, you're just standing there confused, looking at the red light. This is exactly what's been happening at the Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS for short. Thousands of federal employees are getting fired. Now, we anticipated some of this, but the way it's being handled, it's not professional. It's humiliating for a lot of people. Let's get into it. On April 1st, April Fool's Day of all days, HHS starts sending out reduction of force notices. These start going out around 5 a.m. Eastern time. A lot of people are still in their bed. A lot of people might be getting ready or eating their breakfast trying to dart out the door. And there was no notice up until this point. So there was no scheduled last day. When you have a scheduled last day, it's beneficial for the employee because they can anticipate it. They can start doing job searching efforts and other things. But for the actual organization, it's also beneficial because whatever that employee had been working on, you can do a proper transfer. So things aren't slipping through the cracks. Other people can assume that workload. Even though they already have enough on their plate, they can assume it properly because there's been space and time for two people to sit there and communicate about what is being worked on. But that isn't what happened. Instead, you and your coworkers are outside in a line. There's a literal line waiting to get into the door. Everyone's looking at each other confused. They're getting on the phone. They're calling their supervisors outside on the street trying to figure out, hey, I can't get in. What's happening? And they're being told they were let go. One HHS employee said the way people are finding out is to go through this very long process to get to the building, through security and badge in. If the badge doesn't work, they're corralled in front of everyone to wait for an escort to their office so they can pick up their things. They said it's humiliating and degrading to find out you lost your job in this way. Because we're talking about people that might have 10, 15, 20 plus years. They devoted a good portion of their life to that agency. They have earned achievement awards from the secretary, from other high distinguished individuals. They have signed certificate of achievement, certificate of appreciation because of the efforts that they contributed towards the American public. And this is how they're finding out. They're being lined up and then taken into their office so that everyone can see them take the walk of shame so unexpectedly. Oh, and at the FDA, they added another step. They're using wands. You know the type, like in TSA when they're wanding you, and then once they get that audible tone, they go ahead and they frisk you down. So it's like you're at an airport instead of your place of work for the last 20 years. HHS is slashing 10,000 jobs through these non-voluntary layoffs. They're also planning to cut another 10,000 through buyouts and early retirement. So their goal is to shrink the agency down to 62,000. So they want to cut 20,000, a little bit over 20,000. This is the agency that's supposed to be keeping our healthcare system running. We've also been hearing about entire offices and programs completely vanishing, disappearing, dissolving. One HHS employee said there are various divisions being completely riffed, but the final number is likely to be lower than 62,000. It's probably going to be below 60,000. If you consider the power of attrition during a hiring freeze, which HHS is under a hiring freeze, there are some exceptions, but the attrition is a lot higher than the onboarding. So they're suffering every month that there's a hiring freeze. The number is getting smaller and smaller. And can you imagine if you work in one of these divisions or offices that are vanishing? How would you process that? You've been on a project for months or years. You somewhat have seeped your identity into the work that you're doing because you're there so long. You're there at least 40 hours a week. So part of that work is you. And now, with a snap of a finger, it's all gone. Months, if not years of work, all gone. Now let's talk about who's getting hit. We're looking at mainly support roles that are being impacted by this, to include human resources, IT, procurement, and finance, which make up the backbone of any organization. But it's not just limited to those roles. An FDA employee also said that there are science and policy positions that will be cut as well. They said that because entire offices of support staff have been let go, we're immediately running into problems. In my office, one of our labs shut down today because we've run out of supplies due to the halt on procurement. Think about that. A lab that was probably working on drug safety or food standards completely shut down. So whatever mission that they had was put on pause because of supplies. They're not able to get sufficient supplies. That's a ripple effect that will continue to be felt. If you are an FDA employee, maybe you feel like this whole process, this whole layoff, this reduction in force, it wasn't done properly, it wasn't done to standard. Maybe there was a component of discrimination when the RIFs happened. Well, the RIF notice, it directs you to contact the EEO director. The problem with that is she left the FDA weeks ago. She has another job in Maryland. You can't contact her anymore. In fact, recently, there's no EEO staff left, so you have to contact the acting commissioner. And what do you think he's going to say? The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services did something stranger. Their RIF notice directed employees to contact Anita. Anita was the EEO director, but she's not anymore. Unfortunately, she passed away, so she's no longer with us. Now, one of the employees actually went to her funeral and said, it's more traumatizing referencing their dead EEO director. How do you mess that one up? Well, I'm going to tell you how you mess it up. Somebody over there went into the shared drive, they pulled an old template, and they did a copy and paste job. That's what's been happening with all these actions revolving the federal workforce, is copy and paste. So in a lot of government documents, you'll have 15, 20 point of contacts, but when someone's reviewing the document, oftentimes they do not bother updating the point of contacts. So the same individual contact information is being used over and over again years after that individual has left the organization. And in this case, it's being used even after their death. So obviously morale is tanking, and we had one employee over there who took the deferred resignation deal. He said, the administration is cutting the most productive employees and doing so in a manner that makes the rest question whether they should even stay. Think about that. You're not just losing 20,000 plus jobs, you're also losing trust. So people that are left, they're wondering, when am I next? When is it my turn? When am I getting my RIF notice? So you got EEO offices completely destroyed. No one's over there. Then you got critical programs taking massive hits. You have to ask yourself, how does the HHS continue to function as their numbers will plummet below 60,000 for their workforce? One employee called it the exact opposite of the utmost respect and dignity they were promised. And I get it. Your coworkers are around watching you pack up your cubicle and taking it down the stairwell. There's an element of public shaming. There's an element of feeling insignificant. And this is done to improve efficiency, apparently, or to reduce the budget, right? Well, let's do a little thought experiment. Okay, President Trump, let's say in the next couple of years, he's able to reduce the federal workforce by 50%. He cuts it in half. That would take the federal workforce down to levels unseen since the 1940s, since the 1930s. Because if you were to go back to 1971, the government is the same size today as it was in 1971 under President Nixon, before I was born. Now, if that's done, right, 50%, if that is done, you would have a grand total savings of 2% of the federal budget. 2. That's what you would be able to save. So the reason why this country is spiraling into debt, the reason that people are concerned about the value of the American dollar, the reason for our deficit is not because of 2%. It's not because of middle-class Americans that occupy a cubicle. It is not because of the public servant. It's not because of that. You want to look at contracts? You want to look at entitlement programs? You can find money there. You want to look at defense spending? You can find money there. But the two is not the magic number. So it's not going to do any miracles. Now, what it does is it appeals to the president's base, the anti-establishment base. It makes them happy. Then ask yourself another question. The next president that comes into office, will they maintain this? Will they be in alignment and agree with what President Trump has done? In regards to everything, we're talking about the workforce right now, but what about tariffs? You can include that. What about immigration? You can include that. Are they going to be aligned with his vision? or will the government grow? So these changes here, are they temporary is what I'm asking you. And if they are, how temporary are they? Is it just 3 years is the lifespan of these changes? But the real question is, what type of individual is going to be attracted to the federal workforce after President Trump is gone? What caliber of person? Will it be someone in the top 25% of their industry? Will it be someone at the top quarter of their profession? Are we going to be able to draw in quality talent? Because those individuals can get paid more in the private sector right now. The only thing that was attracting them into the public sector was stability, security, and the benefits, the pension. Those were the things. Now, if you still want to have a strong, capable, competent federal workforce, then you can't completely get rid of all the benefits. If you are a federal employee, you're probably aware the Deferred Resignation program has come out for about 10 or so federal agencies. So we have tens of thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands, that are given another chance. Do you want to accept the deferred resignation, which a lot of people are calling a buyout, but essentially you accept it and you're paid your full pay and benefits all the way until September 30th. If you're interested to find more information out about that, check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.